Welcome back to another episode of Health is Wealth. And thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, I am beyond grateful and thankful from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you who is tuning in to today's podcast. As every week, I am sharing a new episode, just sharing words and thoughts of hopes, inspiration, and motivation of things that I'm just learning on my own crazy ride of this that we call life, in hopes that it brings value into your world. So thank you once again for being here today. So what I wanted to talk to you about was, again, this idea of health is wealth, right? And how I really feel it. It's a foundation for us in life to succeed. And I often use this tagline when I refer to the Health is Wealth brand, that you can control your health, you can control your life. Because, as I've been on both sides of this, right? I'm still on a journey to become the healthiest version of myself. But I've also been a version of myself that wasn't so healthy, a life where I wasn't taking care of my body as much, wasn't so concerned with the things that I was putting into it, right? Had bad habits, had, bad vices, and all of these different things. And I truly believe there's this correlation with that and just, your level of success in life, right? Of what you do and what level of success that you're at. And I just believe there's this direct connection between the two. Because when you're not really taking care of your body, it's hard to say that you're going to take the time to care about or take care of anything else in your life, right? And you can often see that, with people who don't really take care of themselves very often, perhaps neglect their health, right? Again, putting, bad toxins and vices into their body. There's a lot that I believe, that connects that to just your standards in life of who you are and how you live and what you do and the level of success that you have. And I believe the more that we focus on becoming healthier, the more, is that connection to, you having a more successful life. Because when you care more about things like your personal body and how you take care of it and exercising and, overall wellness, that tends to just expand and carry over once you start improving that to want to improve other areas in your life. And I think it's this direct connection that most people are truly missing in their lives, right? Which is this idea of the health is wealth, and that it being this core foundation that if we could focus in on our health, it could be the very thing that just improves everything else in life. And I think a lot of times people do want that. They want other areas in their life to be better, other areas to be successful, but it's the last place that they're looking, and it should be the first place that they're looking to see, well, how's my health doing, right? Like, how do I take care of it? Is it important to me? And I often find that there's just the two that connect to each other as far as, how healthy we are to how successful a life that we are. And I think there's plenty of evidence to prove this, when you tend to see a lot of people who are successful in life, financially, let's just say for an example, you tend to see people who've got better habits, right? They really take care of themselves, for many different reasons, right? They care about how they look because they care about how they feel. Then there's a lot of the disciplines and things that come with, taking care of themselves that just translate into other stuff that allows them to become, more successful in life and the things that they do. And so, and I just think because, there is those direct, things between each other, right? When you start to take care of your body, you start to work out more, you start to pay attention to things that you eat, you start to develop these habits and routines and disciplines and mindsets and standards, and as you start to raise those and you get better at those, you can't help but it just become something that starts elevating in other areas of our life, with the discipline of doing this or that or whatever, And so I think everything just starts there at our health, right? And so it's one of the things, though, for me, again, personally, to where I believe over the years, as I've gone through this journey, right, of bettering my health. There are so many things I don't do anymore, right? I used to smoke, do drugs, drink all the time, all these different things, things that I no longer do. The more I started to see, the more I start paying attention to my health, the more I start taking this seriously. It's just by default the other things in areas of my life, family, relationships, finance, a lot of different things, my standards. I mean, I can go on, just seem to start getting a little bit better and better the more I focus in on my health first. Because being able to get to that next version of myself, that healthier version of myself, it's not just working on my physical body, but it's working on my mindset. It's working on, other things inside, spiritual, emotional, just taking care of everything, in my mind, body, and soul, right? And I start to see that the more I've really focused in on trying to prioritize that, it's like everything else just by default gets better with it, because it makes me a better person, exercising more just gives you more energy. You feel better about yourself. You tend to lean more towards a positive way of thinking and mindset and personality because, when you work out, you get these endorphins, these feel-good glands. And when you're doing that so often, you're constantly rushed with this, feeling of feeling better and feeling good about yourself, being more clear-minded, being able to sleep better. There are so many different things because of taking care of your health. On top of trying to eat better, eating better foods, eating whole foods, eating more protein, all these different things that combined, they just start to take you to this next level and version of yourself that again, really helps translates to like different other areas in your life to that start to just to become better, And so for me personally, like I said, on my own journey, the more, I focus in on my health, the more other things in my area of life start to become better in different things. And I really believe this is the start of it, and it's not just for that, but it's also for like longevity, for so many different reasons. I believe health is important. But really the point of the message here though is this, health being our wealth, I believe. It's really this foundation that, if we want to get to that next level of who we are, right? Get to this next level of success in life, I think it's one of the biggest things we need to prioritize in our lives. And I think you could tell a lot about how someone in their success level is in life in just any different area, just by how healthy they are or not, because when you're not healthy again, you're not really paying attention. You don't really care, about your health. You don't care, if you don't work out. You don't care if you eat healthy. You don't care about any of it. So if you don't care about the thing that's absolutely most important for you and your vitality to live, then how are you going to care about other things, about staying on top of this, about, progressing here or bettering that situation over there? It's hard to think that, you're not going to be serious about the most important thing that we've got to us in our health and all of a sudden be serious about other things, Now, granted, obviously, there's one-offs, right? There's people who are probably very successful and, not the healthiest, right? Or, the healthiest and not so successful. There's a lot of these. But I think just majority-wise speaking here, I think there's an absolute correlation directly related to, how serious you are about, your health and having good heart health and working out all the time and getting stronger and all of that and eating well and sleeping well and just the overall wellness of things. And how that can correlate to a more successful life. I'll tell you the night and day difference between how I feel nowadays to where I felt 20 years ago when I wasn't caring so much about my body, when I didn't care about what I was putting in my body, when I neglected my health because I wasn't exercising as much or eating crap food all the time, this, and that. Again, plus all the bad vices of smoking and so forth. What a difference it was in my life then to what it is now as someone who is, unconsciously and constantly, thinking about my health first, because I know it gives me the ability to get myself to the next better version of myself. And that's only going to just give people who I care about that better version of myself. And I'm telling you, I really truly believe this is the biggest thing that we need to focus in, should focus in on, because I think it's the missing link on what's keeping most people from getting to the next level that they might want, but they're looking for the answers elsewhere. And it all starts here inside us, with us first, by asking ourselves, hey, perhaps, I'm not where I want to be in life because I'm just not taking myself serious enough, and I can't take myself serious enough to make myself healthy. Then how am I supposed to have the disciplines to take care of other things in life that are also serious to get to the next level? So, I'll shout this, till the day that I die on top of that hill, right? To where I just believe health is wealth. I believe the foundation and core of us becoming more successful in life in any area, in every area, truly will always start with our health, and making that a priority, because it's just going to reward us in so many different ways. I think the only thing when it comes to your health that you'll ever regret is not taking it more seriously sooner. Because the more you start to change and adapt into a new lifestyle, becoming healthier, focusing in on that, the more you realize you just become a better new version of yourself. You're thinking better, you again, managing stress in life even better, right? You're just feeling good all around, knowing you're taking care of yourself. Your body's operating better. You've got more energy. You can do more things. And the list just goes on and on. Plus just how that affects people around you, and then how that might inspire somebody else as well to get in better shape and get healthier because you're starting to feel better. And it's definitely one of the biggest things going into this year, right? That I'm trying to take even more serious is to my health, because there are so many other levels in life that I'm trying to excel and elevate up to, right? And, there are different things in those areas that I'm trying to improve on, but I truly believe it all starts with the foundation of my health, which is why I'm taking it the most serious to try to stay on top of, eating better and tracking macros and things like that, and exercising constantly, and just making sure that is there, because I just feel that every time I take it to the next level, push myself to continue my health journey of getting to the next healthier version of myself, it's just by default, everything else is starting to get better and gets better with it. So, in 2026, this is where my head is at. Everything else is important that I'm trying to, to improve my life, but I know it's the foundation of my health, and it has to be the most important thing because it's the thing that's going to help everything else grow. And if I'm not focused on, my health, the chances of me getting to the next level of success, becoming who I want to be, it's hard to say it's going to be very possible, because if I'm not taking my health seriously, how am I supposed to take other things seriously, And like I said, for me personally though, too, especially coming to this new year, I just feel a million times better, living a healthier lifestyle. And I could truly see the evolution of me taking my health more seriously and continuing to not give up on my journey. And just how it seems like that the healthier I become, the more I see progress in my own journey. It's just like life around me seems to elevate with that. And I truly don't believe it's by accident. That's why I believe health is wealth is such an explosive idea of where it's like this could be the very thing that the majority of people are missing, and I advocate for it all the time, telling people, look, you got to get more serious about your health. Like once you start to get in and you see the impact and you see how it starts to change you and people start to notice, and then you could feel the difference in your life and you could feel the quality of things about who you are, the people that are around you, the things that you do, and the directions that you're going, and the energy that, exudes from you because you're just so in it, you feel great all the time, it just makes a huge, huge difference. And it's the one thing I could tell you all, right? It is the most important thing you'll ever have in you, to you in your life is your health, and it's not just about living in the present, the healthiest version for us, but for longevity too, to be around as long as you can for yourself, for your loved ones, for those you care about, so we can all experience life together, as long as possible, but as healthy as possible. And so, it's just something for you guys to think about again, especially just coming into the new year, right? like I said, for me personally, the more I just dig deeper into this journey of how can I become healthier, physically, mentally, in all these different areas, and really make that the glue of everything in my life. I'm just telling you how much better the other areas in my life seem to be getting constantly, which is why I'll keep pushing for it. Because again, when I wasn't taking care of my health so much, I wasn't having much success in life. I wasn't going in good directions, right? Because everything was correlated to how I treated my health. It was my mindset, it was my habits, it was the people I was around, it was the things I was doing, all that, and because I wasn't taking care of the most important thing that God gave to me, my body, my mind, my health, then it just translated into everything else around me. And so that's why I think for anybody trying to get to that next level, it has to be the first thing for you to look at and be like, okay, there might be something here on why I'm not getting to the next level. And I think for the majority of people, you can directly connect this to their health. And there's a lot of stories about a lot of people who, once they started to get their life in order by becoming healthier, everything in life just got better. There is absolutely no coincidence by why this is happening. It's just because when you start to take your health more seriously, you start to take life more seriously in other areas. Once you start improving your health, it becomes addictive because you feel good, you feel better, and then it just pours into you wanting to improve other areas in your life. So that's why I use this tagline too quite a bit. Control your health, control your life, because I think this is where it starts, and I believe health is wealth on many different levels. Not just physically, but again, the relationships in your life, the quality of the person you are in your life, but I think there is a bigger thing here between that and, a financial state as well, because, you see it nowadays too. A lot of these most of these entrepreneurs, they all talk about how their health is such a key component and factor in them continuing to level up into success. It's almost that you have to be that, to live a bigger life, a better life, to deal with more, to have the energy to do it all, to be more clear minded, to make better decisions, and things like that. So, as always, guys, remember that your health is your wealth. It is the most important thing you can work on. You are your biggest project. You will always be your biggest, investment in life, and everything you pour into yourself will always grant the greatest return on investment. And I just think, if you are at that point in life where you're like, I'm trying to get to that next level, but I don't know how to, I think honestly, if we take a look and start with our health first, you could probably correlate that there's a lot, if it's not going your way, probably comes back to, to how healthy you are, and if you take that serious or not, and so I truly hope everybody does take it seriously, because for me, again, it's like the journey has only, continue to show more proof that it's like the more importantly I take it seriously and stay on top of it and dig deeper into it, everything in my life, continues to get that much better, and so when you see how that works and why it works, it's hard to stop. It's hard to go back. It's hard not to keep pushing, because you're like, if I keep getting healthier and things keep getting better, the sky's the limit, right? So as always, folks, thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I will see you on the next one.